scene that could have been pulled from a disaster movie. The aftermath of a 30-car freight train derailment that happened on Saturday night just outside of Houston.
There's a whole lot of mess here.
Well, it kind of looks like Armageddon in a way.
Last night around 11:25, we had a train that had originated out of Barstow, California, headed to Stockton, California, when it derailed.
Over 12 hours later, still several cars tipped and leaking, with track buckled and bent underneath.
The ones that are really off, they've been working on for a while.
Well, I did notice one of those cars was, going the wrong way.
Vito Macelis lives right across the street from where the train derailed on Santa Fe Avenue.
The main thing they told me was that there was no hazardous materials.
Officials say the train was carrying structural I-beams and fly ash, a powder that's used to strengthen cement.
They'll start clearing the cars so that we can resume operation through that area. But before we can resume operation, we have to make any necessary repairs to the track and to the signal equipment.
Officials say no one was hurt in the train derailment, and none of the cars were carrying anything hazardous, but because of the damage to not only the cars but the track, there will be some road closures in place for quite some time.
We anticipate opening up Santa Fe Road tomorrow morning, Monday morning. However, Hatch Road will remain closed most likely until Thursday.
Amtrak is said to use one of the two rail lines that runs through this area, but they don't run on Sundays, a fact Vito Macelis was thankful for.
So I guess we're just lucky that it wasn't a passenger train, it was just a freight train.
In Stanislaus County, Tish Pomadesi, KCRA 3 News.